Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the podcast that's not really a podcast. I'm Joe from JKEV, and as always, I'm joined by
regular EV dad, John. Hope you're well. So, Joe, I'll tell you about what I'm up to in a minute, but because I'm doing this live from a cafe in the middle of nowhere. But what have you been up to recently?
Lately, I went to the Chicago Auto Show, went and drove some plug-in BMWs, and right now we're in the middle of planning our next big road trip, a little over 4,000 miles to Montana. So, as always, keeping life busy. How about you?
It has been one hell of a week, and if you're following me on Twitter, you may have seen some of this. So I found myself in Portland helping out Mrs. Regular EV, and I woke up just doing a conference call with my team in Europe and see a tweet out the corner of my eye that Kyle from Outer Spec Motoring was literally a quarter of a mile away, along with Sandy Monroe and the entire team from Transport Evolved. So I was hanging out with them on Tuesday, which was kind of cool. There'll be a video on that in the future, but today, helping out the wife as part of my road trip, and I'm doing this live from the Bankers Cup in St. Paul, Oregon. And I gotta say, it's a damn good cup of coffee.
I heard that since this video is related to charging, getting the most out of your EV, I heard recently you had some electrical issues.
All right, so this is not EV related. This is, and again, sorry viewers for the bad audio, but this is the only chance we get to record this. Yeah, low voltage is dangerous. This was not to do with my car. This was the fairgrounds that we're at. They're running 300 kilowatt diesel generators, and there are 60 RVs on site, and the voltage dropped below 100. And low voltage kills air conditioners, TVs, and anything else. So yeah, last time you and I spoke, I was driving around the countryside trying to find electrical wholesalers to swap out some parts. Don't buy an RV if you like money. Just don't do it. Don't do it.
So this would probably be a good time to point out that, as you can see behind me, we're going through renovations. So we don't even have doors. And as John just explained, he didn't have electricity. So if you would like us to have doors and his family to have electricity, it'd be a great idea to like and subscribe this video. And make sure to subscribe to both channels, as the links will be down below. Be sure to comment below with what's the lowest state of charge you've ever arrived with, or have you ever ran out? We'd love to know. So last time we just chatted, we were discussing Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, a bunch of the networks that are available to use for DC fast charging, as well as we discussed level 2 charging, level 1 charging briefly. But today we want to go a little bit deeper into how to get the most out of your DC fast charging. So how have you been able to utilize the charging curve of the ID4 to get your trips, get to your destination faster than a better route planner would suggest possible?
Yeah, and so let's add some context to this. Look, there's some statistics from this. Most people drive on average less than 50 miles per day. And that's going to be the use case for any vehicle. It doesn't matter whether it's running on biodiesel, gas, or even if you have to push it, hopefully you'd have a shorter commute. It's when you're going beyond, I'm going to just arbitrarily say 350 miles, so that you are forced to make a charging stop. That's what we want to focus on today. How do you get the best speed, time, distance, performance when you're going more than 350 miles, when you have to make a DC charge? And so let me ask you this as a question, because I know the direction we're going to go on this one, Joe. What's the lowest you've got your battery down to when you've been road tripping?
On our recent cross-country trip, climbing out of the mountains out of Death Valley, we arrived with 4%. So we were definitely I experienced range anxiety, but we made it. And even though the guessometer on the Volkswagen thought it wasn't possible, we made it. How about you?
Yeah, my badge of honor would be just under 2%, which I think was going through Nebraska. And in fact, I spoke to Kyle about this the other day. I'll put a link to the video that we're going to put up. He's not apologizing for encouraging this behind behavior, but you need to do it responsibly. That means knowing what you're doing. And that's why we're doing this video. So whilst I have brought it down to 2%, I knew I was going to come in at 2%. That's the crucial element. And that gives you, if you think about it, worst case scenario, 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour of juice. That gives you 5 miles to play with. And I'm comfortable with that because I know it's flat ground, the wind, but here's the benefit, and this is why we do these things. So if between 0 and 40% is what we call the fat charge element. This is where you can dump 129, nearly 130 kilowatts per hour of juice straight into the battery. This is the fastest charge you'll get. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can put 100 miles of charge into the battery in 12 minutes. That's the difference it makes. But I'll throw up I'll put it in the edit, and I'll actually show you a charging curve that we talk about this.
The magic of YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll fix it in post. But what that means in human terms is that essentially you can drive for an hour and a half and then charge for 15 minutes and then drive for an hour and a half and then charge for 15 minutes. Now, that might not sound normal, but you've done the cross-country thing as well. Talk about how that feels like in real life.
Yeah, so there are two ways you can go about it. You can arrive at a destination with 10% and charge all the way up to 80 or 90% and stretch it to skip the next charge or two to go to get it back down to 10%. That might be like a 3-hour stretch of driving. But then you'll be stuck charging for about 45 minutes or so. I have found that I much rather drive an hour and a half and charge for 15 minutes and just keep repeating that process because, quite frankly, after an hour and a half, I'm ready to get out of the car for a couple of minutes anyway. How about you?
I think anybody that's watched my videos knows that for me, driving is the battle between the battery and the bladder. Whilst the car can comfortably go 80 miles an hour with the air conditioning set to stun for 235 miles. I know, I've done it. I cannot. Either me or the dog's going to have to pee on a tree at some point, or possibly a Walmart restroom if that's available.
Or both.
Absolutely. But when I look at the cross-country road trip, and actually not just, by the way, this isn't just my car, not just our car, the ID4, but also when I road tripped the Tesla Model 3 long range through Wyoming, I would average 2 hours of real driving, and then 20 minutes of the supercharger, because I need to pee, and I need coffee, and I need lunch, and that's one of the great things about EV charging is that you can do it while you're peeing. You don't, whereas if they get really angry if you leave the gas flowing over, at a flying J. It's just one of those things. And I don't like to leave the fuel tank exposed for 20 minutes while I take care of nature's requirements. No, it doesn't make sense immediately, but once you've done it a couple of times, you get into a nice, I'm going to say, cadence between, fueling, stretching, driving, and it doesn't actually add that much to the journey. Just while you talk more on that while I just pull some data from my recent trip to Medford.
Yeah, so one of the nice things is historically, when we were taking our hybrid across the country, we wanted to get a fast food drive-through, eat as fast as possible, sometimes eat while driving, just to keep pushing down the road. Because we're charging while we're eating on our EV road trips, if you take 5 or 10 minutes longer to eat and you sit down and relax, you're still getting charged while you're eating. So it's actually not time wasted because you're just you're charging more now, that means you're going to charge less later, and it all equals out at the end, short of a couple minutes difference in charging. I know you wanted to just show a chart that you were able to download from your EV Notify, I believe.
Yeah, I'll show that afterwards. I was actually going to talk about this trip now, just so this is the one I'm on. This is very real. So I drove from San Jose to Medford in Southern Oregon earlier in the week as on my way to Portland, and this will be the video I put out probably over the weekend. Now I had to stop 3 times on that trip. Now the distance of the trip isn't important. All you need to know is that I pulled into Willows with 17% state of charge. I charged for 26 minutes, which took me to 80% state of charge. I pulled into Anderson with 33%. Now that's it's about 60 miles later. I wouldn't normally stop at Anderson, except for the fact that I needed to stop there because I had to get over the mountain passes. I charged there for exactly 22 minutes, again to have 72% state of charge. And then having gone through the mountain passes into Wairika, I pulled in with 15% of state of charge. I charged for exactly 24 minutes again, pulled out with 70%. And here's the important thing. I pulled into my hotel with 3%, I think it was, state of charge. And I went to bed and charged my battery, same as the car, just plugged it in. And, so in total, I spent, you think about this, I spent 6.5, 7 hours in total. You see, 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock, so 10 hours of actual travel time. And I spent 1 hour and 4 minutes charging. That's not a bad ratio. Ignoring the cost, because charging is free on Electrify America for the first 3 years, but even so, this wouldn't have cost me as much as it would in gasoline. And yes, we do have $4 gas in California, but even at $2.50 gas in Wyoming, that's still a real cost. I arrived awake enough. I wasn't hard charging to get into bed. It's a very natural way of charging, a very natural way of driving once you get used to it, and more importantly, as long as you plan for it. I think that's the only compromise we have to pull off where we're going to pull off. We can't say, oh, we'll just go to the next exit. That's not a choice we always have, because there might not be a DC fast charger at the next exit.
I mean, I think an important thing to note is people constantly ask me, how long do you spend charging? How long does it take to charge? And the truth is, I'm always multitasking. I'm either eating, or it's a restroom break, or something's going on during those DC charges that no matter what car I was taking, you probably would have been stopping for at least an hour that day just to get to your destination.
So, I mean, here's a perfect example, Joe. This was a charge I did on a Sunday morning a week and a half ago. You can see down here on the green display, I pulled, that 20, it means 20%. So I pulled in with around 20%. Now I was charging up to 40% because I was skipping to the next charging point. Ironically, I'd arranged to meet somebody at a charger so I could pick up a dog, again, making use of my time. I only needed to go to 40, so I could coast in at 2%, and again, but this is what we call the charging curve, this blue line. So you'll notice it goes up really, really quickly, like in the matter of a minute or so here. And then it's running at 120 some kilowatts per hour. And so you've got this constant going in. Now, ironically, because I pulled out, you can see it just tapering slightly. We always say at 38%, which would be around this mark, if it can be seen on my screen. It starts to reduce to just under 100. We can see here, because everything was nice and cool, it kept going all the way down, right up until the point where I actually disconnected when I finished getting my charge. That's what we call a charging curve. I'll put a link into a video from Tom Mahoney. Hopefully I got his Magogli. I always get his name wrong. Thank you so much. He has a YouTube channel called State of Charge. And so we'll actually show you the full charging curve profile for the ID4 in there. But this is where we talk about getting the most out of the performance by just putting the charge you need in to get to the next charge, or maybe a little bit of a buffer, but nothing more than a couple of percent. Because so when I'm driving the RV, and this has got an 80-gallon gas tank, which, by the way, you don't ever want it to go empty because it's expensive, but I am aware, very aware, that I am carrying gas to carry the gas. It's like a rocket, it's like a SpaceX rocket. You have to carry your fuel with you. Well, the weight of our vehicle doesn't change when the ions come out, certainly nothing noticeable, but the time does. You don't get that back. So putting in the minimum amount of charge is good for you. Put a little bit of a margin in, get to the next stop. Don't go to the bathroom and then charge. Plug in, then go to the bathroom. This is where you'll get the best experience. And then, like I always say, just remember, you're only doing this when you're going more than 300 miles. The rest of the time, you're starting each day with a full tank of ions.
That's right. Many people have said, well, it takes longer to get to the destination than a gas car. Why would you own an EV? Well, I would argue that the daily usage, which is 49 to 50 weeks of the year for me, it's more convenient having the EV, knowing that every day you're leaving home with a full charge. You're never needing to schedule a gas station stop into your route of your daily tasks.
Absolutely. Is there? I think we've covered this off. I think it's worth pointing out. We're doing this from life experience, and we'll include links to our road trips, which includes the charging data, i.e., the amount of charge we took, and the time we took at these various facilities. We're both geeks, so we both provide all the data on these things. But other than that, I think this sets us up nice. I think we can say that next time what we will talk about is the apps that make charging easier. I think we should talk about PlugShare, EV Connect, and a few others. I read an article today on Axios where he said that he was driving a Ford Mustang up the East Coast and he couldn't find chargers. Well, that's just bad reporting, and it shows a level of intelligence. Like, well, there was a Tesla supercharger, but I couldn't find one. It's not a Tesla. It's like knowing the difference between diesel and gas. You just need to know where they are. It's not that hard. So we'll, I think our next video will focus on the apps and finding and making best use of that infrastructure, if that's all right with you.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. In that case, I've been John, your regular EV dad.
And I'm Joe from JKEV.
And if you have been, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, add your comments. We've got more videos to come, lots more content, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Take care.